Please welcome our next speaker, Jake Harvey. Today, he'll be presenting his session, Deep Dive into AI Prompts in the Power Platform. Please stick around after Jake's session for a live Q&A.
Hello everyone, welcome to the session. Today I will be speaking around everything around AI prompts in the Power Platform, and we're really going to do a deep dive into this really exciting topic that the Power Platform now has to offer. My name's Jake Harvey. I'm Power Platform lead of Advania UK. We're a long-standing Microsoft partner specializing in everything M365, Azure, Power Platform, and AI. So hopefully today you'll find this session really, really engaging, and you hopefully learn a few things of how you can utilize AI prompts to really take your solutions to another level within low code and the Power Platform. Firstly, big thanks to DynamicsCon for the opportunity. I think this is a great opportunity to get so many experts together in a virtual conference. So please do take advantage throughout the sessions that you attend today to ask as many questions as you can, really engage in that content and learn as much as you can from lots of different experts who have made the time to speak. AI is absolutely everywhere now. It's in all of the solutions that we use day to day. You've got senior members of organizations looking for opportunities of how they can really bring artificial intelligence into the applications that their employees use, and those business applications that are really critical to an organization's success. So from a Power Platform point of view, it was always going to be interesting how generative AI would be brought into the low code space. And it's not that long ago that actually, this is just the Dublin conference for the European Power Platform conference in 2023, that we were really limited on the options that we had within the Power Platform of how to bring some of this great generative AI capabilities that we're seeing in the news, seeing in our personal lives through ChatGPT. And the only options really that we had was to, through Power Platform connectors, create a custom connector into Azure OpenAI, or at the back end of the Power Virtual Agents capabilities, we did get some out-of-the-box native OpenAI integration that quickly transitioned into Copilot Studio. But we were really limited of how we would get this into our apps and flows. And Power Platform as a whole has really been on this progressive journey of how AI is really going to help a citizen developer, a low-code developer, really gain advantages through the development of applications and the functionality they can put into their applications through AI, right the way back to 2021, when we first had the ability to describe in natural language Power FX formulas. So this was amazing, especially in that no-code space. How can someone who really has zero coding capabilities describe exactly what PowerFX functionality they wanted added to their app? In 2022, we got this similar functionality within Power Automate, where we could describe the exact triggers and actions through natural language of how we wanted a specific flow to be triggering and integrating into our data. And then from a Power Apps perspective, this was really great functionality of integration into tools like Figma, or being able to take a picture of a piece of paper, a mock-up that you've just sketched down, and have Power Apps create a solution through AI directly into the Maker portal. And now from 2023 onwards, right up until today, we've seen a really quick progression in different capabilities being introduced into the platform, the rebrand of Power Virtual Agents into Copilot Studio and all of the great capabilities that came with that, the rebrand of Azure AI Builder within Power Platform, which is now the AI Hub, and all AI capabilities within the Power Platform sitting in there. And we'll come on to that in more detail in a moment. But then other great capabilities in Power Apps, Power Automate, and Power Pages, for example, that's really positioning Power Platform to be one of the key places within the Microsoft Cloud estate that you will come to really gain benefits from AI that Microsoft are introducing. So the AI Hub, which I just touched on, so everyone will be familiar with this potentially through AI Builder access in the past, or potentially looking at some of the different document processing capabilities of the ability to extract information out of documents. But really, these are the movement of certain capabilities that used to sit within Azure, that sat within cognitive services, and were brought into Power Platform to make them more accessible for business users. So what is the AI Hub really built up of? So there's out-of-the-box AI, which we have some pre-trained models that are ready to use, and this is everything from AI prompts that I'm going to go into much more detail in today, right the way through to some of the kind of document processing capabilities that we have there built to extract specific information out of documents. We then have customizable AI. So how can we actually train models through low code, but also now have the ability to import models from other technologies so that bring your own model scenario. We have end-to-end AI capabilities right the way through that build process. So that ability to integrate whatever AI capabilities we've built within the platform, but have them present in our apps, in our flows, in Dataverse, for example. And then finally, governance, always a big topic within Power Platform. How can we really put mature governance around the platform? And this is now included into that AI part of Power Platform itself, that inheritance of governance of what you get through environments, through DLP policies, and how we can push that governance down onto models that will be used across our organization. Looking at AI Builder, and these will be some of the models that people may be more familiar with. So these are the pre-built templates that Microsoft do provide, and you have the ability to integrate these pre-built AI templates into your apps and your flows for your different business processes. But what we're talking about today is the ability to, through natural language, create prompts that serve as a framework for your data to understand and be processed into a large language model as part of that framework to essentially it could be summarized text, it could be to extract specific information, it could be to categorize specific bits of text, but not have to necessarily have a technical background to describe the way in which you want your prompt to be engineered. We have the ability through these templates and then through being able to create custom prompts through natural language to really make sure our data input is handled in the exact way that we want, thrown at a large language model and generated a response of exactly how we wanted that information to be processed. And this is really cool technology that hopefully today I can bring to life for you, show you a few different examples that you might take to your own lab or may very quickly kind of mirror a business process that you have within your organization, and you quite quickly see the opportunity for value that AI prompts can bring. This is the interface for an AI prompt, and what it's really trying to enable us to do is through natural language and variables, have the ability to pass a variable into a prompt framework that will then use a GPT model, and we'll go through the different options that we have there, and then generate a response. Just like, in our personal lives, a lot of us have used ChatGPT to generate different responses from AI. This is a similar capability built directly into M365 and the Power Platform. And what's great about it is it's integrated out of the box. So there's no need to create custom connectors into something like Azure OpenAI or other generative AI technologies. And there's no need to build anything custom for using these AI prompts within any areas of the Power Platform itself. Whether you're creating an app, creating a flow, utilizing Copilot Studio, AI prompts is something that from the outset is there as a functionality option to bring into the solution that you're trying to build. But just like with anything with Microsoft, there's always a bit of fun with new technologies. And this is a little bit of a gotcha where I just want to kind of demonstrate in the different technologies that form the Power Platform, how can you actually utilize AI prompts? Because it's a little bit different in each of the technologies. If we're looking at flows, and I will show this example actually in a demo in a moment, if we're thinking of cloud flows, you'll find the ability to use AI prompts under an action that is called prompts. In Copilot Studio, and this is where we do get a few inconsistencies across the platform, and over time, this will definitely join up and be a bit more intuitive, but at least taking the slide away, you can go and play in the different technologies with the same functionality here, and hopefully don't get lost in doing it with this guidance. In Copilot Studio, it comes under actions. So within actions, you've got the ability to use a prompt, but you have to go through the actions mechanism within Copilot Studio. And then in Canvas apps, it's actually just not labeled as prompts whatsoever. there's the ability to connect directly into AI models, and you will see then an AI prompt as you've created it as an example of an AI model that you can bring into your Canvas app. So just something to be aware of here, that the labeling is a little bit different, but it is all the same single functionality that you're using. You create a prompt once in AI prompts as part of AI Studio, and they then become reusable across the rest of the Power Platform. So there's no need to duplicate your work in various parts of the Power Platform. So before we get into a couple of examples, I think it's always good to, when we're creating a prompt, understand what effective prompting actually looks like. And this GCSE acronym that Microsoft have provided with is a really good way of making sure that when you're trying to create a prompt, and especially a complex prompt, that you cover all bases to really help AI understand exactly what you're trying to achieve. The first thing is the goal. So what's the specific information that you're looking to get out of your data? It could be something like, give me information about a specific incident, and you're giving it a specific incident ID that really helps the AI narrow its search into the data set that it's utilizing to generate that response, and really has a few different data points to use there of an incident. You're looking for information around it, so it is going to try and describe information about that specific incident, but the key bit being that incident ID to really kind of focus the journey in which AI is going to go on. Then the context. So why do you want that information? How do we expect that information to be brought back, and really kind of helping AI understand how it's actually going to be utilized? So for example, I want information about this specific incident for a report that I can submit to my manager. So it might position the AI through its large language model learnings that the response should be quite formal because it is to your manager, and you'd probably speak to your manager a bit more formally, try and be a bit more accurate, and kind of make sure that it's brought back to you in that sort of format. Next is expectation. So what's the format specifically that you want the response to be brought back in? Is it a list? Is it a table? Could it be in code? If the specific information that you're requesting from a large language model needs to be brought back to then support code within a solution. So this may be, give me information about a specific incident from my manager, and could you just put it in a bullet point list of just the key points? And finally, the source of that information. So where should AI be looking? I think this is where it really kind of relates now to the Power Platform, when we think of the different integrations that we can make, and you think of the broad sets of information that not only you have it within M365, but across the kind of broad data sets that a business is going to have. Telling AI exactly where it should go and look for that, it is really going to be important, because then when it brings that information back, you know it's been looking in the right source. You've set the expectations in how it should be formatted. You've set the context in why you're asking for that information, and the goal has been described of exactly what you want in AI to help you to achieve. So this as a framework is really powerful. So definitely, even outside of solution building and AI prompts, if you feel like you're not getting the outcomes out of generative AI that you're looking for, I think this is a fantastic framework to use to help you along that journey. So first demo to look at here really is just to go into creating a basic prompt. So you can see here we're in AI Builder, and on the left-hand side, you'll see that we've selected AI prompts. And there's quite a few templates, as I mentioned earlier. And if we take a look in one of the templates that you get out of the box, this one's around summarizing a bit of text. So you'll see the prompt is pre-populated to say, please summarize the given text as an input or a variable in a way that's easy to understand. And it begins to create a prompt there that's going to help us summarize a bit of information. On the right-hand side, AI prompts has this concept of inputs, which is essentially a variable where we can place these inputs into our prompt. So it's the area of the prompt where we're going to pass in specific data. This data could be from various places depending on where we're using AI prompts, but one great feature now is that ability to integrate directly into data and Dataverse and choose then the specific output that we're looking for once data has been processed. That could be as text, just a simple generative response, or it could be through JSON if you're looking, for example, Power Automate to bring that information in a specific way. And finally, which model do we want to use? So I'll come on to costings later, but as part of AI prompts, we do have the ability to use both 3.5 and 4.0 to create our solutions. So just pausing for a moment here, we're now going to go into an example of a specific kind of business scenario where we're looking to analyze customer complaints. And if you look at the prompt that's being created here, what I want to do is pass the AI prompt an example complaint, which I've generated the complaint itself through AI. And I'm telling the prompt that you are a customer complaints handler. Your job is to review and correctly categorize complaints. You also need to pull out very specific information about the complaint to support with handling and assignment to the right teams. I want the AI to analyze the complaint as it's passed in, and then extract into a list a specific set of information from that complaint. So things like the sentiment score, order number, customer name, email address relating to the customer. So all of the information that's going to help someone handle that complaint. And what we're able to do is create then an input of complaint and use sample data to show the AI prompt the type of information that it's specifically going to, it will typically receive. And you'll see in the sample data here, this is a specific complaint about some headphones that were purchased, and it contains other things at the bottom, specifically, people's emails and the name of the person that's complained. We're using for this just the GPT 3.5 model. You will see through testing that there is differences in outputs, especially with quite complex prompts or complex data. So do try the different models to see the quality of output that you get. But for something kind of quite scripted like this, it will hopefully generate us the type of response that we're looking for. So directly from the AI prompt builder here, we can go ahead with the sample data that we've given the AI prompt. We can go ahead and test this prompt. So we just hit the test button. And what that's done, as you can see, is against the criteria that I'd set within the prompt, it's now pulled out, for example, the sentiment score, which we'll come back to in a moment, actually, because I think in most cases with sentiment, we're looking for more of a number scale. So let's have a look in a moment of how we can change that and see what we can get out of AI. But out of the information, it's pulled out the date of purchase, which product was in the complaint, the order number, customer name, the email address, and has done a really good job of achieving that prompt as I've set it. But if we go back into the prompt now and we edit that sentiment score, part of our prompt framework, and say we actually want to give a 1 to 10 scale of sentiment, 1 being very negative, 10 being very positive. Very quickly now it's able to go and use that guidance to give a sentiment score of 4 based on the complaint. So that would tell a complaints handler, obviously this is a complaint, so it's not great, but it's not the most severe complaint that we could receive. It doesn't appear that the customer's potentially as annoyed as they could be. And that may result in automation of putting the complaint into a specific priority list, especially if there's a certain threshold around sentiment. It could be if anything is as negative as a 3 or below, that jumps to the priority list. But a really good example here of how we can create quite a simple prompt. There's zero code in this demo whatsoever. And we're really able to quite quickly build quite a powerful solution that is analyzing unstructured data through an AI prompt and spits out information as we wanted to receive it. So next, we're going to look at exactly how you can utilize an AI prompt. So I've chosen to do this through Power Automate, and as we'd spoken about a few slides ago, just through Power Automate, it's exactly the same as any other action, really. You need a trigger in your flow. So let's think of this complaint example where it's likely going to be triggered from a complaint coming into a central repository. And in this example, I'm using a shared mailbox where you may have a complaints handling or management team that have a shared mailbox complaints come into, and then they delegate those out to the right people to handle. So I've added in a trigger and labeled my flow as customer complaints management. And this is just the normal out of the box Outlook trigger of when a new email arrives in a shared mailbox, then do something through a specific action. So if we go into actions here and we search for prompts, you'll see this create text of a GPT using a prompt. So this flow and the prompt data just directly integrates then into AI Builder and the AI Hub, and it will contain all models that do exist. So, based on your permissions, just like everything else in Power Automate, that's all trimmed, and you'll just directly see prompts that you've created or that are stored within an environment that you have access to be a maker. And we'll see within there, we can click analysis of customer complaints, which was our prompts from the previous demo. And then it will just ask us simply to pass in the complaint. And if you remember, we created that input that acts as a variable, called it complaint. So Power Automate is intelligent enough to know that that is one of the inputs that the action of create text with GPT needs. So what it's going to do is make that a mandatory field, make sure that through my Power Automate flow, I'm passing in that complaint that can then be analyzed. So I can just click into there, and just like with any other trigger to action configuration, you just select the body from an email, and that will then directly pass that into the AI prompt. So hopefully those two demos are useful. Really quick through a developer environment, to be honest with you, to go and just essentially go and create these yourself. The developer environments within Power Platform do come with AI credits as part of it. So it is a free playground to go and play with a lot of this functionality. So yeah, I definitely advise pick quite a generic example that you can utilize to quickly build something and start to get to grips with how AI prompts do integrate into the rest of Power Platform. So to bring this to life in a real world scenario, and this is something that me and my team have built for an organization, the scenario here is the organization that we were working with had to manage around 6,000 risks with it as part of their governance, risk and compliance department. And what they do around those risks is create what they call control descriptions. Every risk has a control of how they're going to go and mitigate that risk. And these control descriptions need to follow a certain framework of what, who, when, why, how that risk is essentially going to be managed and controlled. And all of those GRC controls are stored in a third-party system called Metric Stream, where the organization stores all data and all information related to risk. What they were previously doing was, over a 3-month period, this activity had to be completed quarterly. They were manually going through thousands of risk controls against the framework and trying to understand how well that control meets the framework that they've set out as the definition of a good quality risk control. Obviously, that is very time consuming, and it was pretty much someone's full-time job within the risk department to go analyze each of these risks and control descriptions and understand how well they're meeting the description and the framework. So what we were able to do was integrate through Power Automate into Metric Stream, this third-party risk management system, and extract all of their GRC data into Power Platform. We were then able to utilize Copilot Studio as a mechanism of giving the conversation of ability to say, does this control description meet the framework as we've set out, and pass the control description into AI prompt against the defined framework and essentially give us a score of this is how well the control description meets the risk framework that's been set out. The effects of this within the risk department have been absolutely amazing. A process that could only be completed at maximum capacity for someone's day-to-day work over a 3-month period. So only 4 times a year could this manual process be completed. It can now be completed in just 2 hours. And the amazing thing here is the cost of that per run is just $150. So a process that was 3 months, very kind of manual, repetitive, open to mistakes, and really just didn't give that kind of proactive ability to the risk department to be constantly analyzing their ability to control their risks. Now they can run the process on demand whenever they need to for $150, and it only takes 2 hours. The other kind of amazing thing here is it gives them a lot more flexibility in when they can run this. This is really to meet certain audit requirements that are completed on a quarterly basis. But if they have a more random audit, or just people within the business need to know the specific quality of certain control descriptions. They have that ability to now run on demand, which just wasn't a thing in the past. So, a really good kind of transformation of a business process here. And I'm sure lots of you can think of the really kind of manual comparison type processes that you have within your organization, that by utilizing things like Power Automate to run through records and loop through records and pass those records into an AI prompt, analyze that through the AI prompt, and then present that information back however you'd like to. In this example, we use Copilot Studio because it means someone in the risk team can just open a custom Copilot, ask about a specific description and get a response. But it may be that you create a Power App to manage this process, or it may be that it is just simply an automation and then the outputs are put just into a Dataverse table or an Excel file. Lots of ways that this process could have been handled. But hopefully this, as a real world example, really brings to life the power of not only AI prompts, but just the amazing integration capabilities that we have, not only across Power Platform and other M365 and business applications that Microsoft provide, but also into third-party systems, and where we can really string together a real automation process now for our clients and our businesses. Going into this risk use case in just a little bit more detail of, I guess, how it was actually built. So down the left-hand side, just as a reminder, that kind of GCSE acronym, really powerful here. So just split the prompt that was actually used to achieve this. So you see at the top, you're an expert in risk management. Your task is to review the control descriptions provided and score them out of 100. So right there, we're setting the goal of what we want the prompt to achieve. We then give in criteria of what makes a good description. So this is really the context now for AI to understand that any good description needs to meet these 11 points. And you'll see it follows that who, what, why, when kind of framework. But the AI is going to use this context to analyze records as it goes through them. We're then looking at the source. So, we're passing, you'll see at the bottom there, it's passing in a description each time into the AI prompt, and that source is what's going to be passed into that context framework of how the AI is really going to analyze that information. And then we're setting an expectation of the output should only have a final score out of 100. So we're giving it a 0 to 100 scale that the AI is going to attempt to score against, and for each criteria explain the assessment and impact on the score. So we actually want AI to explain its reasoning for giving a specific score out of 100. It could be that it analyzes it and some of those points out of the criteria there, that it couldn't identify, which person would ultimately be responsible for managing this risk, or exactly why this specific risk needs to be controlled. So it's that framework that's really making this a powerful solution. And here's an example of some test data that would be passed into it. So this is an example of a risk control around access control and making sure that access into different facilities is handled through things like a joiners, movers, leavers process, through security, making sure that things like a visitor is handled very differently to a permanent employee's access, or that, for example, visitor arrangements are made in advance so that things like passes are in place for when they arrive, and there's not that kind of breakdown in process. And you'll see this as an example here, really follows that framework as we set out, and it gives the risk team that framework. So when they're then creating a risk control, they know that if they don't meet all of these points, the AI is just not going to pass it. Kind of puts the onus on them to really take time creating a quality description. That information that's just been passed through, then you'll see this is the output of the AI prompt. So the final score that it gave it was 75 out of 100. And then against the framework, it's given a criteria assessment of whether it thinks it met or partially met or didn't meet that specific part of the framework. So if we read the top one, for example, around the who part of the framework, the text mentions roles like group physical security and local office level, but does not provide specific names or teams. So I guess there it's saying it's lacking the assignment of responsibility. So although it kind of partially meets the who example, AI doesn't believe it's being quite specific enough. So that's taken away from what could be a perfect score. it's taken away from that to really give reasoning of why it's given that partially met. If we go down to point 7, for example, of the metrics part of the framework, there's no explicit mention of metrics used to measure or monitor the operation of the control. So it deducts points then from the overall score. Really powerful, really gives the reasoning behind why it's making certain decisions, and gives you a score then that as a team you can work to improve on through your control descriptions as you carry on to iterate through managing risk. Just a few of the gotchas that you may experience when utilizing AI prompts, and there is a couple. The first one isn't something that's necessarily going to break your solution, but when utilizing Power Automate, Copilot Studio, or Power Apps and integrating them into either AI Builder in general, or anything that uses GPT models, so this would be the same if you used Azure OpenAI as well, you will see a notification that says, essentially, there's not a human in the process. You need to put in an approval step for a human to continue this process and essentially approve that AI generated information can be passed through the process and can be actioned in whatever specific way that you've defined through, in this example, your flow. It will just give you a warning. It did previously actually stop you from saving a Canvas app or a Power Automate flow or publishing a Copilot Studio bot. Now it will just give you a warning, but it is important to know that, if you're thinking of scenarios where you may be generating emails that are going to be sent externally, or you may be generating approval statuses against specific task items, even though you want AI to do all the kind of heavy lifting and the hard work for you, there is still an opportunity there for kind of quality check and almost treat it a little bit like a peer review where a human still approves that final step before a process is completed and any AI generated information is actually used for something important. So definitely just one to keep an eye on. The next one, I guess a bit probably more important than the last in the sense of the impact that it could have on the feasibility of a solution, and making the right technology choice. So to be quite blunt, AI prompts are far more expensive than utilizing Azure OpenAI. They are far more convenient, and really that is where they're positioned, is if you're going for the convenience route, that kind of speed to value type of scenario, then utilizing AI prompts and having that ability to integrate them across the rest of Power Platform is extremely powerful. But it can come at a cost increase compared to something like Azure OpenAI of about 4 to 5 times more expensive. The other route being you can still use Power Platform for creating AI solutions and utilize Azure OpenAI as that generative AI capability, but you would have to do that through a HTTP request, whether that's in Power Automate and using the HTTP connector, or creating a custom connector that then can be used across other services within the Power Platform. So definitely one to be mindful of, and it is something that is constantly evolving as Microsoft enable us to use more of OpenAI's models. So with 4.0 recently being released and that being brought into the Power Platform, also as you saw in the demonstration, that will come at more costs. The greater the model, the higher the cost. So I think it's definitely a way up, but there is certain scenarios still where I think that kind of speed to value of utilizing AI prompts is still the right solution. And especially if you want to empower citizen developers or maybe non-technical focused employees to utilize some of this functionality, then AI prompts is going to be the way to go. But definitely a way up and one to consider when you're thinking of which generative AI capability is best to be kind of used to infuse AI into your solution. Final slide from me, just to wrap up. So what is great is that, as people who are really enthusiastic about Power Platform and enthusiastic about low code, is we are getting that ability through every part of Power Platform now to integrate into GPT and utilize generative AI. We don't need to be developers who are used to writing custom code and creating custom applications. We can get access into this really exciting time from a technology standpoint and build something that's amazing. Anything that we do build is completely reusable in the Power Platform. So it doesn't matter if we create an AI prompt and firstly use it for a Power Automate solution or use it in Power Apps. If we decide it actually has a place in another solution in the future through Copilot Studio, for example, it still will work there. And also when we're thinking about extending Copilot for M365 as well, we can also utilize AI prompts as part of a custom Copilot through Copilot Studio that gets published as a plugin to Copilot for M365. So from an extensibility perspective there, lots of opportunities for us, really. It does use AI Builder credits. If you do have any premium licensing in your tenant, you will have some AI Builder credits. So it's interesting to check what you maybe already have available to you, and might be able to get started straight away. And if you do have those credits available, really worth considering for a solution that you're thinking about building of what does that time to value look like when thinking of a Power Platform solution versus a completely custom application. If AI prompts are more expensive, but the development time is 10 times quicker, it could be that the costs actually balance themselves out, or just that ability to quite easily iterate the solution through low code makes it a bit more of an attractive option and enables you to get that kind of time to value piece right for your organization and your stakeholders. And then finally, there is the bring your own data model that does work great within Power Platform and AI Builder. So any models that have been created within Azure AI or other vendor AI platforms can be brought now into the Power Platform to be reused. So it's not something you're going to have to try and logically think through low code of kind of really trying to recreate a complex model that was created through custom code. This is something now that you can just import and use within AI Builder across any of its capabilities. So I hope that was useful. Thank you for attending the session, and thank you again for DynamicsCon for putting on such a great event. Any questions, please feel free to ask, but otherwise have a fantastic day.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for attending that session. I really appreciate that. And only at the moment one question has come in, but please do continue to fire them into the chat, and I'll do my best to answer them. The first one that has come in is around having peer review in terms of an approval process for utilizing AI prompts. And I think it's a really good point and a good question around what is the right level of human interaction here when utilizing AI prompts across your processes. I did mention in the presentation that previously it was actually a mandatory approval step that had to be in place for every single Power Automate flow, every single app that you created, that if any data was going to be submitted or any data was going to be processed into something that would action something like an email or a Teams message, that you would have an approval or peer review step in that process. So I think it's great that Microsoft have removed that from being kind of a must-have requirement to everything that we build. I think that was a little bit overkill. But I think it is good that we do get the flexibility in the solutions that we build to add in approval steps. So if you want that to be a manager approval step or then a peer review step or a multi kind of step approval process, then we are in a position where we can do that and have the flexibility to have that within our solution. Hopefully that helped with that question. I can't see at the moment any other questions that have come in. I'll just give it a moment. Yeah, no problem. Just saw your message and appreciate response. No, doesn't look like there's any other questions for anyone. But yeah, by all means, reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have anything more specific to ask. And yeah, happy to support with that. But again, thank you for attending the session. And then thanks again for DynamicsCon for giving me this opportunity. And look forward to tuning into more of the sessions in today's event. Thank you.